The Terminator series kinda ended after director James Cameron moved on to other projects, and the rights became a jumbled mess. But as Terminator 2 had made more cash than serial sperm donor Jeff Cash, the franchise wasn't going to remain dormant forever. And like dinosaurs being revived from their DNA,
we're so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should.
Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, and Terminator Salvation. Terminator 2 was a massively successful film, but neither director James Cameron or franchise co-creator and his ex-wife Gale Hurd controlled the rights, and so Cameron wasn't inclined to churn out Terminator sequels, instead concentrating on True Lies and then Titanic. After Titanic's huge, enormous, large, gigantic, humongous, gargantuan success in the late 90s, Cameron was by now king of the world, apparently lording it up from his sky castle, hovering high above the clouds.
I'll be back.
Carolco, who had produced Terminator 2, had long been out of business, but its principals had gotten together the cash to get the franchise rights back through their new company C2 and hired director Jonathan Mostow, who'd had a big hit with the submarine movie U-571. So in our review of Terminator 2, which you can see by clicking the link, we talked about how that film managed to have a satisfying ending that didn't automatically negate the conclusion of the first film. The problem with that approach is that if you have a valuable franchise, as Terminator had become, is that T2's ending makes continuing the series tricky, like trying to tie your shoelaces while wearing a straitjacket. I mean, it is possible with lots of patience, but also very frustrating. In 2003, Terminator 3 Rise of the Machine decided to basically nuke the first two movies by saying Judgment Day is inevitable. Trailers for the movie showed nukes going off, but the movie lulls you into a false sense of security by having nuclear explosions happen in the first scene, as 20-something John Connor recounts how the world didn't end. And since he's no longer going to lead an army, he's staying off grid, which apparently just means working construction. He runs into a girl he once made out with in junior high, apparently the day before the events of Terminator 2, Kate Brewster, who's now a veterinarian, and her dad is, we eventually find out, conveniently in charge of the latest version of Skynet. A T-800 is dispatched on the orders of John Connor's wife, and guess who that is?
Look at you now, sitting there like the bad boy thing still works.
Tell her who I am.
John Connor is leader of the worldwide resistance and last best hope of humankind.
And instead of stopping Judgment Day, he's just there to get them somewhere safe for when the shit hits the fan, which is in only a few hours' time. Which really sucks because Kate only needed 2 more stamps to get a free sub.
Go to hell.
Of course, the wrinkle in all this is that there's another evil Terminator, this time even fancier than the T-1000. The TX can shapeshift and has built-in weapons, and since she's now a female Terminator, and this film was made in 2003, she has inflatable boobs. She licks blood from bullet wounds to analyse things, and seems quite thirsty in general. I would never want to slut-shame any machine, apart from that gold-digging inkjet printer. Christiana Loken has a thankless role as the sexy Terminatrix, and it's one that really didn't do her career many favours. But she's in good company in this film. Nick Stahl, yeah, no idea either, is a slightly less whiny John Connor. Slightly less, but once a John Connor, always a John Connor. Claire Danes did well only because I don't think anyone remembers the film, and of course, she is Claire Danes. I mean, she could make reading the instructions on a can of fly spray work dramatically.
Catherine Brewster, have you sustained injury?
Drop dead, you asshole!
I'm unable to comply.
Terminator 3 it's decent enough, entertaining enough, but it's not James Cameron enough. It's an easy to forget film, but since we're reviewing all of them, it's got company. The plot moves along well enough, and there's solid, if over-the-top action. But again, it's nothing particularly special. And in the 12 years since Terminator 2 was released, computer graphics had moved on to the point where it's used on almost everything in Terminator 3. Even for 2003, it's not always the best CG. Terminator 3 was an expensive film, but one that doesn't really feel like you're getting value for money. Like living in London, Terminator 3 tries hard to be funny, from remixing Arnie's arrival from the previous films to its groundbreaking use of the phrase, "Talk to the hand." Remember, talk to the hand? Well, if you ever want to pretend you have a time machine and need to revisit the early 2000s, use the phrase, talk to the hand.
Talk to the hand.
Of course, the idea was Terminator 3 would make it easier to continue the film series by making sequels possible. The way this is achieved is, hey, let Judgment Day happen. So it's a Terminator film that's going to have a downbeat ending regardless, just so they can make more films going forward.
The battle has just begun.
Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines was fairly successful at the box office, but not the sort of mega successful you want when you drop $30 million just to get Arnie to read the script.
She'll be back.
I wouldn't get my hopes up. After the release, the rights to the series were again in play, and of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger became Governator of Californiator, so another Terminator film would have to wait. But first there was television.
Come with me if you want to live.
Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. Now try saying that fast. Sarah Connor Chronicles, Sarah Connor Chronicles, Sarah Connor Chronicles, Sarah Connor Chronicles. Anyway, it's an action series that chronicles the adventures of Sarah Connor and 16-year-old John Connor, starting 2 years after the events of Terminator 2. But with the help of a time machine, flashes forward to 2007. John has a new protector, a reprogrammed Terminator named Cameron, and a group of resistance fighters sent back in time to prepare for Judgment Day do battle with a group of Terminators sent back in time to prepare for Judgment Day. We see glimpses of the world after Judgment Day. Even Kyle Reese's brother is introduced as a regular. The series, Sarah Connor Chronicles, Sarah Connor Chronicles, Sarah Connor Chronicles, does a lot to build on the world as depicted in the first two films. And as a show, it's a good action sci-fi series, the sort that major US networks often shied away from. It was a not terrible sci-fi show on Fox with decent reviews and a growing fan base, which meant it was cancelled at the end of its second season in the middle of its story, like a D-list celebrity after a tone-deaf tweet. And then in 2009, Terminator Salvation, which is probably the most unique of the Terminator films to date in that it's the only one that takes place almost completely in the future after the war. Christian Bale is an older John Connor, not yet overall leader of the Resistance in the year 2018, but he's listening to recordings made for him by his long-dead mother, Sarah, where she tells him about his father, Kyle Reese.
If you don't send back Kyle, you will never be. But while I have you, I want to tell you about a fabulous timeshare opportunity in Boca Raton.
In 2018, Reese is still a teenager and apparently a captive of the machines, just at a point where the Resistance will bomb the living shit out of Skynet headquarters. A slight wrinkle in all this is Marcus, played by Sam Worthington, who was executed in 2003 but wakes up years later in 2018 after Judgment Day. I mean, that's a hell of a hangover. Sam Worthington's appearance is the sort of thing that future historians will use to date any media from the year 2009, since Worthington was in almost nothing for the years before, and very little after 2009, yet he's in everything in 2009. So about halfway through the movie we learn, yep, he's a Terminator, but for whatever reason doesn't seem to want to kill humans, which is ironic since that's exactly what he did when he himself was human. Kyle Reese the Younger, played by Anton Yelchin, is a kid here, on the cusp of proving himself useful to the Resistance. Bryce Dallas Howard is now playing an older version of Kate from Terminator 3, now married to John Connor. Since Arnold Schwarzenegger was busy, the old school classic T-800 appears again, here as a CG creation, and in a nod to how much better CG visuals had progressed in 6 years, the effects in Terminator Salvation look a hell of a lot better than those in Terminator 3. But Salvation is not a drama, it's an action flick, directed by a guy whose professional name is Mac G. So talky scenes are relatively short. They're done okay. The action is also quality action film bullshit, even if it verges on superhero antics. Once again, the film is okay, but it just doesn't seem to have any spark. It's a little soulless. It's like they got Skynet to generate a Terminator script. This is of course the film that's now most remembered for Christian Bale screaming at a crew member during production. You son of a bitch! And not for its plot, action, acting, production design, humour, direction, dialogue, music, or Sam Worthington. But Worthington's other big 2009 release was an actual James Cameron film. That did okay. Reviews for Terminator Salvation were mixed, and while it was an expensive movie, it didn't really do the sort of business that was expected. Like pay-per-view socially distanced MMA.
I'll be back.
I wouldn't count on it. As far as the franchise went, Salvation was like the casting requirements of a Sir Mix-a-Lot video. Anything but.
Everybody deserves a second chance.
In the next video, we'll look at the next two installments of the Terminator franchise, Terminator Genesis and Terminator Dark Fate.
Yeah. We're on the same page.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.